Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to words. Specifically, words that are widely used in one country and have started catching on in the other. In this, part 1 of a 2-part series, I'll be igniting your brains with 7 British English words that have recently started infiltrating English in the United States. And I know what you're thinking, ooh, Lawrence, are you just going to ignore the countless American words recently adopted by Brits? No, that's coming in part 2. So if you'd like to get notified of that video and haven't had a chance to subscribe, do that now. But in piecing together this video, I took to social media to ask my American viewers to name the one British word they use the most. From the thousands of comments we received, some words showed up considerably more often than others. Which brings us on to this list. Here are 7 British English words that might be catching on in the United States. And we start the list with a relatively recent word in British English. The word wonky, in the sense of askew, cropped up shortly after World War I. Indeed, I recall it being used frequently during my own life in Britain, which is not surprising given that I could never keep my glasses straight. And while the turn of this century saw a rapid increase in the word's use in British English books, the same appears to be true in US markets. Largely, this spike may have been the result of books that originated outside of the US, such as Craig Smith's The Wonky Donkey. With the author of that book being a New Zealander, it's worth noting that some British slang has long since caught on in other countries where English is a prominent language. Indeed, Melissa on Facebook noted, "I had an Aussie university professor and on the first day said something was wonky and then dodgy. I've used both terms ever since." Perhaps the oldest word on this list, bloody hell, is so synonymous with British speak that it's almost become a parody of itself. In fact, during my time on the American stage, a playwright once changed a line for me specifically so that it would read bloody hell instead of god damn it. That's a true story. The intensifier bloody is thought to have originated in the 17th century. A once highly offensive swear word, its impact has softened in recent decades, to the extent that it was even referenced in those Harold Potter books. Indeed, YouTube commenter Andy Joe 522 chose bloody hell as his most used British phrase because, quote, "I blame Ron Weasley." And it seems he's not alone, with instances of bloody hell skyrocketing in American English texts since the year 2000. In fact, responding on Threads, Canadian comedian and most famous person I sort of know, Brent Butt, took things a step further and suggested f***ing hell. As ever, I proudly share those sentiments. While both countries use brilliant in its original sense, as in sparkling with light, British people employ it to describe someone or something that is amazing, fantastic, the dog's bollocks. In America, I more often hear it specifically to describe somebody who's intelligent, which is why it's rarely used around me. That said, I have encountered the occasional American who uses it the British way. Like, for example, Vicky on Twitter, who responded with brilliant, which I've been saying since I heard the 10th Doctor say it. But even Doctor Who would have a hard time unpacking the data on this, which is muddied by the fact that the word has several definitions. At the very least, the 2-word phrase "that's brilliant" is found with increasing frequency in American English texts since the start of the 21st century. Despite the occasional earlier use, Gobsmacked really only burst onto the British scene in the early 80s, a bit like the Whisper Bar or a certain YouTube sensation. The brilliance of this word is that it physically encapsulates what it describes. In other words, one's gob, as in mouth, is smacked, causing it to make an O shape. And something that left me gobsmacked was the sheer number of Americans who profess to use it. As ever, its growing popularity among American Anglophiles owes much to books, film and television. But according to Chris on Facebook, the term is also known among fans of another product of the early 80s, Warhammer. Despite googling this, I'm still none the wiser as to what this entails or what a Warhammer is. Perhaps I'll be gobsmacked when I find out. Either way, instances of gobsmacked in American English books have soared in recent years, as British literature continues to make its way across the pond. Time will tell whether or not it will catch on with the wider population. I heard it once said that British people use the word proper more times in a day than Americans do in a lifetime. And the thing is, we don't just use it, we do so in a number of ways. At British organisations, proper can refer to the moral character of a prospective appointment, and whether or not he or she passes the so-called fit and proper person test. It can be used as an intensifier similar in meaning to very or extremely, as in Lost in the Pond is a proper brilliant YouTube channel. Not my words. They are my words. It can also be used to describe something as the genuine article. Arthur is a proper dog, isn't he? And it appears to be this definition that Americans in my comments section have latched onto, with Cheryl on Facebook offering up proper as in a proper city. However, despite the word cropping up numerous times on my social media feeds, it's actually seen a century of steady decline, not just in Britain, but America. Often, enthusiasm for British English among American Anglophiles is not shared among the wider American public. In hindsight, this might be one of those times. I don't often smile, but when I do, it's because my 6-year-old niece drew this many pictures for my birthday. In Britain, we might say I was chuffed to bits. But chuffed to bits, or just simply chuffed, is another way of saying I'm really pleased right now. It is derived from the Northern English word chuff, which used to mean puffed with fat, but these days is a synonym for arse. Anyway, when I use chuffed in the United States, my fellow Americans look at me as if I'm speaking anything other than English. However, among the American Anglophiles who make up a large portion of my subscriber base, it seems to be catching on. Take, for example, YouTube commenter Rubricity, who told me, I recently cracked someone up when I said I was chuffed about something, but in an American accent. Which means, I suppose, you were both chuffed about something. Once again, American readers have at least become more exposed to the word, with a sharp increase in instances since the end of the 20th century. Perhaps the word I was most surprised to see coming up again and again in your comments was the word sorted. Not because I didn't think it could catch on in America, but because it didn't occur to me that Americans don't already use it. And then I paused, stared off into the middle distance, and realised Americans do use it, but only in the sense of organised. In Britain, it has one or two other meanings. In addition to the example I just used, Brits might say sorted when something has been resolved, as in the British Transport Police slogan, see it, say it, sorted. Many may even be familiar with the English YouTube channel Sorted Food, who famously use the word upon the completion of a recipe. And back when I were a lad, people in Grimsby even used it to mean brilliant. As in, the new chippy is proper sorted, mate. Even I'm confused at this point. Nonetheless, the word showed up countless times underneath my posts on Facebook, Twitter, Threads, and YouTube. And if you're not following me on those platforms, sort that out now. Moreover, sorted has featured in a significantly higher percentage of American English texts since the end of the 1900s, with a fine example being Agent Alfie by, quote, the best-selling author of Doctor Who. If this list has taught me anything, it's that even recent British English words have the capacity to reach the United States. In fact, it could be argued that the internet has only increased this capacity, perhaps to a level not seen in more than a century. Specifically, my American subscribers often tell me that they picked up unique British phrases from pop cultural institutions like Doctor Who, Peaky Blinders, and of course, Harold Potter. In my next video, I'll be looking at 7 American words that might be catching on in Britain. In the meantime, if you've not seen my other vital list, 6 American things that are actually British, I insist you do that next. Until the next video, goodbye.